So I continue with what Dinesh just presented, the evidence gap map. And in the morning we heard Howard explain how this work has been done. So in this next 20 minutes, about 20 minutes, I will present only focusing on this topic, road infrastructure and design. So for road infrastructure and design, we actually divided into subtopics while coding the study. So we looked at protective infrastructure, we looked at road design and urban form, because there are a lot of studies looking into built environment and urban forms, so those were included in this topic. Speed control measures because of infrastructure design. Bicycles, powered two-wheelers, pedestrian paths, plazas. There are special bicycle lanes or special lanes for two-wheelers, so those studies were included here. Traffic control and junctions were included here. Work zones, toll booths, and parking policy. So these are the topics that were included in road infrastructure. And we looked at, when we coded the outcomes for this, obviously we looked at if they have made any difference in the fatal crashes, for non-fatal crashes, and for change in speed. So these were the three sub-outcomes that we looked at. So here is another view of the evidence gap map. I'm using these cells now. So for all these, so first filter we put was how many studies which are impact evaluations and how many are systematic reviews. So yellow ones and with numbers are impact evaluation and green is systematic review. So for all the subtopics that we are looking at, so I have summarized the main findings in red. Majority studies, both systematic reviews and impact evaluations, are for road design and urban forms. So that was the first subtopic. Speed control measures and traffic control. And the other subgroups are missing. Next, we apply a filter of low income and middle income countries versus upper middle income countries with high income countries. So now you see a very clear gap emerging. Most studies in fact are available from high income and upper middle income countries. So clear that whether we look at road design and urban form or protective infrastructure or speed control measure, you see all the yellow ones are 10101. So these are the studies in low income and low middle income countries. So this is again a big gap we can identify. Next filter we applied South Asia, Sub-Saharan Africa, Latin America and MENA countries versus Europe and North America. Again, similar pattern emerges here because more low income and middle income countries are Sub-Saharan Africa and South Asia. And we find that studies in South Asia and Sub-Saharan Africa are missing in this major subtopic. Next, we apply filter, we divide it by what has been done in terms of infrastructure for non-motorized traffic versus motorized traffic. So for three main subtopics, we find more studies are evaluating impacts on motorized traffic infrastructure. So again, especially for non-motorized bicycle infrastructure, etc., most of the time, those studies are missing. Then we look at road design and infrastructure under the subtopic, we apply the filter urban versus rural. And we find that the three main subtopics that we have, road design and urban form, speed control measures, and traffic control and junction. Under these three, we do find impact of road design. More studies have been done under this, and this is equally divided between urban and rural. But the other subtopics are missing, and one major subtopic missing again is work zone and toll booths. And why I'm mentioning this, because actually we do find all the work that we have been doing in India also that work zone on highway has a major safety concern. Next, we apply a filter. We look at what about studies which are evaluating open access roads versus restricted access. So which means we are looking at expressways versus open access, divided 4-lane, 6-lane roads which do not have access control. And we find that studies covering protective infrastructure, junction on access control and work zone on access control are missing. And it is again interesting that the kind of work that we have been doing in India, we find that access control roads, which means expressways, have a major safety concern, including pedestrians becoming victims on these despite being access control roads, and also on work zones. So this is the overview from our work so far, what we have done, and we find that what are the major gaps in some of these subtopics, especially for road infrastructure. In next few minutes, I want to share with you some specific topics, one or two examples that we can take for road infrastructure and see its applicability in low and middle income countries. Because one thing is clear from the GAP EGM that we have done so far, most studies have come from high income countries. So I pick up two examples. The first is on shoulder widths. This is a much debated topic, and many of the projects in South Asia and also in Sub-Saharan Africa, we are looking into having a debate on whether increasing the width of the shoulder is beneficial for road safety or not. Because we've had this debate in India that increasing the shoulder width gives more space for vulnerable road users, because we have a lot of bicyclists and pedestrians and other vehicles present, especially on our rural roads, so that may make it safer. But on the same time, the function of the shoulder is really for, as defined in Africa and many other manuals, it is for emergency maneuver. It is to give space for vehicles losing control, and they can recover the emergent space available for recovery. So what I'm quoting here is actually recently there has been a very extensive detailed project done in EU, SafetyQ. So I've picked a few things from SafetyQ because this is one of the most recent exhaustive study available, which has looked at many studies published in this area. So I picked up this example of shoulder width also from the same study. Several studies, and I quote from that study, several studies have found a positive effect of increasing shoulder width on road safety. However, for some circumstances, including property damage, shoulder-related crashes on multi-lane roads have significant negative impact. So the red, what I have written in red, is also quoting from the same study. That also, SafetyQ also says that transferability is questionable, since all studies identified are carried out in the US. Actually, there were only 6 studies listed there. And the year of the study, the evaluation methods became the core predictors. So they found that the studies which were done later, and the method in terms of whether it was a case control study or empirical based method, made a difference in terms of its applicability, strongness of this result. So let's see about transferability. We do know that the traffic in Sub-Saharan Africa and South Asia is very different, and the shoulders are being used very differently. Shoulder is being used by slow vehicles, not just for emergency maneuver, but it's a regular movement of slow vehicles on shoulders. Shoulder is also used by parked vehicles, not in terms of emergency. It's a regular activity. So this is a different use of shoulders. We do know that proportions of pedestrians, even on our highways, are very high, and on road traffic crashes. Highway shoulders are used by parked vehicles, slow-moving vehicles, bicycles, etc. And in fact, rightmost lane is used by heavy vehicles. We drive on the left side, and routinely overtaking is done from the left side. So now we have to understand the impact of shoulder width in a very different context. So first, we have only 6 studies, all come from US. And then here we are talking about a very different situation. So there's a huge gap. Now I quote from Runek's paper, as that's a reference for many things. But in this paper, Rune has talked about that many road safety interventions have two impacts: engineering and behavioral adaptation. So human beings are not like physics or chemistry solutions that we can predict the outcomes very clearly. That is what is discussed in the paper also. So what is the engineering effect of increasing the shoulder width? More space for emergency maneuvers and more space for vehicle recovery, true. But behavioral adaptation of the drivers, higher speeds of motorized vehicles. And we know that shoulders being used by vulnerable road users. So now we have vulnerable road users exposed to higher risk speeds, which translates to higher risk. So the transferability of the results of the studies that we have is a big question. So clearly, as Howard mentioned earlier, that to come up with systematic reviews or what works, first we need to create a solid database. That base of the pyramid is clearly missing here. Another quick example, raised median. So medians are intended to increase the distance between the driving directions to reduce the risk of drivers accidentally getting into the opposite lane. Medians limit the opportunities to turn across the road outside their road lanes. Installation of median has been shown to reduce the number of accidents in road segments with the greatest effect on the most serious accidents. And it's the same thing here. Also, majority of the studies have come from, we already have seen the evidence now. None of these studies have been carried out in South Asia and Sub-Saharan Africa. So overall in this meta-analysis, 29 studies were found. And you see the countries where this topic has been studied: United States, Australia, Denmark, Norway, Japan, and Malaysia. So Malaysia is the only country in South Asia. So let me just give you some pictures of what is happening in India in our high-speed roads. This is an expressway, and routinely we have medians, but not just any median, in fact raised median. Median is raised 200 mm, 20 centimeters from the ground. Raised medians are hazardous. This has been known, it's written in many guidelines and many standards. And it's in fact quoted to be hazardous because the vehicles get into unpredictable trajectory if the tire touches the high raised median and high speeds. In fact, the last thing that I have quoted here is IRC, it's Indian Roads Congress standard, also does not recommend raised median, yet we have been doing it. And you see more closer view of the raised median on all these high speed roads. And we find that all our expressways are having major problems with tire bursts, single vehicle accidents, and vehicles going into unpredictable trajectories. All as a result of this. So, the results of that 29 studies is not applicable because they are not evaluating these kind of raised medians. The traffic is different, but also the way it has been implemented is quite different. So last thing, what is the way forward? Of course, we are going ahead. We have yet to do a lot of work on judging the quality further, but the major gap is quite evident. So current knowledge of impact of infrastructure designs on road safety is clearly limited to what has come from North America and few studies from West Europe. Impact of shoulder designs, median type. In fact, in many places in Asia, we are constructing service roads along access control roads. We don't know the impact of that. Shoulder markings. So if we have a lot of vulnerable road users, there have been a discussion that instead of painted shoulder markings, should we go for audible markers, which treat it very differently as opposed to only painted ones. We have no studies and no experiments done for that. These have to be studied in Africa, Asia and other lower middle income countries. Impact evaluation studies should be made. So this is our recommendation so far. We are investing a lot of money in upgrading our roads, in expanding our roads, improving roads. Can we not have impact evaluation studies mandatory of all investments by international donors and developments? Otherwise, we are not creating the knowledge base. We actually have no idea what is the impact of all the work we are doing. Improvement of roads. And new infrastructure standards have to evolve based on new knowledge production. Clearly, the kind of context we saw in the first presentation, 90% of the deaths are happening in these countries. And we are not producing evidence from these countries. So it has to become an integral process of our investment and what the work we are doing. And it's a long-term effort. It's not going to happen quickly. All good studies take time. But if we have to achieve 2030 vision for the SDGs, I think there's a lot of work to do.